So, Greg Regan, you've been a pretty busy guy lately, haven't you?
Yes, I have, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, I know you're getting a lot of calls from media outlets and all that, but this story is going to go on for a long time. You know that. I mean, and this is certainly not the first train derailment that's going to come under scrutiny here. But why don't we revisit that testimony on what you talked about? And you've said this on the show many, many times. We gotta take a good hard look at what's going on here. So talk to me about that part first.
Yeah, we have pointed out now, and this is not just on the first, but for the last several years, have pointed out the effects that the radical job cuts across the industry have had on safety culture in the railroad industry. We've seen the increase in accidents in train yards. We've seen the rate of accidents increase. And, it correlates pretty closely with the time frame when they've reduced their workforce by 30%. So I honestly hope that we can start looking at this more sensibly and recognizing that having a workforce that's cut to the bone is not conducive to safety. And of course, we don't know at this point what the actual cause was, so you can't point your finger at any specific thing right now, but you can talk to any rail worker on the ground, and they'll tell you that they feel it. They feel the a decrease in the level of safety at the railroads.
Greg, I want you to talk about precision scheduled railroading, PSR. You and I have talked about this, and I know some workers are speaking out, and I don't know if it's factual or not, but some are blaming that because this is a practice that lines up cars in the order that they're supposed to be unloaded. I guess that's part of that. And perhaps safety concerns might have been left out of that. Why don't you explain what this railroading, this PSR does? And I don't know, maybe it is part of the problem here.
Yeah, look, PSR is really, it's precision. It's neither precise nor is it particularly scheduled. And as I've heard some of my colleagues say, it's not exactly railroading the way they know it. And what it really is, it comes down to, is that they are trying to maximize their profits and lower their operating ratio. So certainly massive furloughs are part of that. Certainly reduction of equipment is part of that. We've seen an emphasis on speeding up inspections. So, all of that stuff combined, and when it combines into bad attendance policies and lack of sick leave and things like that combine to have a workforce that is overworked and expected to be on call 24/7. And that's just not, as I said, not conducive to the types of redundancy and safety protocols that are needed in an industry that is this dangerous.
Yeah. You mentioned profits, and I see in your testimony that, they've been doing pretty good. Union Pacific, for one, in 2022, $7 billion. That's a record. It's up from 6.5 the year before. CSX and Norfolk Southern, they also announced record profits. CSX, $4.17 billion, and Norfolk Southern, which is the carrier that derailed, $4.8 billion. And the trend is pretty clear. I saw that in your testimony. Now, when you testify before Congress and all that, I'm just wondering, are they getting the message on this? Do they realize that, wait a minute, we're at a breaking point here? Do you feel that might be happening or no?
Some do. But when I'm testifying in front of Congress, there a lot of times you've got members of Congress who are looking to make their own political points. So, they're not, it's not a super investigative and thoughtful conversation all the time. But I will say I am hopeful, if you're talking about the derailment that happened, I am hopeful that, we actually got lucky this time, because oftentimes when you have a catastrophe like this, unfortunately there are either deaths or serious injuries. We did not have that happen here. It's going to be a long time before we know the environmental impacts, but we didn't have a crash that resulted in, many people dying. And oftentimes that is what it takes to get meaningful safety regulations done in transportation. And one example is the Colgan Air crash in 2009. That was the fourth fatal accident in the previous, I think it was about 7 years, they realized this was a problem. We got much better pilot training regulations in place. We got much better fatigue laws in place. And we haven't had a plane fall in the sky since in the United States. And we've shown that works. But once again, that only happened. We spurred that action because of a catastrophe. And in this case, we have a high-profile accident where fortunately nobody died. And so I hope that when we look at this afterwards and when we get the full results of the investigation and we can look at the totality of the safety environment in the railroading industry, this is going to be that instant that spurs real reform and real safety improvements.
Senator Sherrod Brown, who has been very vigilant when it comes to workers' rights, he has spoken out about this, and he said federal law should require the railroads to tell states when hazardous chemicals are going to go through their community, when they're going to pass through. And apparently, in the previous administration, according to Senator Brown, they weakened a lot of those rules and regulations. And obviously, you know, the rail industry, they got a lot of bucks. They got some good lobbyists, and they probably weakened those rules. Any comment on that? I mean, do you know how much those rules have been weakened that, you know, might have played a role in this? I don't know.
We're still looking at all that. I mean, I honestly, I know that there was a lot of lobbying. We are constantly trying to prevent rollbacks to safety. I mean, we're constantly trying to push back on the industry when they want to waive brake inspections or track inspections and things like that. So it's not surprising to me that it wouldn't be surprising to me if some of that information was removed. But I can't say for certain what exactly happened during the Trump years there.
Well, we do know this. This was a three-person crew, and I know you and I have talked about the push to make them one-person crews. Now, I guess we're lucky. First of all, the fact that we had three people that were running that train on that Friday night, and you pointed out there, nobody died. Obviously, you had toxic chemicals and all that, some wildlife destroyed, and I know a lot of fish, over 3,000 fish they found floating in the water. But probably if we had a one-person crew, which the rail industry would like to see, then that probably would have turned into a fatality. I don't know. This is all speculation on behalf of this, but in something like this, I mean, you and I talked about that disaster in Quebec some years ago. How long will it take for an investigation to come up with some solid results on something like this? In your opinion, what do you think?
Well, the NTSB has, usually they have 18 months or something to try to get their full extensive report done. That doesn't mean we won't know more before that final report. They've already given us some information in terms of, the axle bearing that appeared to be at a critical overheating point before the derailment. So we will certainly know a little bit more that will help us, but, they're thorough, and they should be, because they got a lot of stuff to look at. Yeah.
Okay, well, there's other parts of the testimony that you had on the first of this month, February 1st. Anything else you want to call? I see there's other, like maritime, obviously, air. I mean, we're dealing with a transportation infrastructure that needs, obviously, improvement in many areas. Anything else you'd like to touch on here while we have you?
Yeah, look, I think that there is this is an exciting time for infrastructure and for this country with the amount of money that is starting to go out the door for improvements. And I think that we are going to a lot of the stuff goes directly towards improving our supply chain. A lot of things that will directly benefit the railroads, for example, if they're able to take advantage of it. Better grade crossing improvements, better access to ports for railroads, better intermodal facilities, all that stuff that should benefit our overall economy, in addition to improvements to our passenger systems. The question is whether we're going to hold both our local governments accountable to do it the right way, and whether private industry who uses all of these facilities, whether they're going to do their part too, to take full advantage of it and make and improve efficiency and modernize our whole system. So that's where we're focused on in terms of implementing all this stuff. But it's exciting because we have an administration in place that understands how to do it the right way.